back to the channel. In today's video, the wait is finally over as we're going to be taking a look at the Devil Saviour Troublemaker Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Devastator. Now, before we delve into the review itself, I first of all want to say a massive thank you to Bombusby for making each and every one of the individual Constructicon reviews possible, and for those of you looking to add any of these guys to the collection, I'll of course be sure to pack a link down in the description box below. Now, this piece has undeniably got to be one of the most ambitious that I own in my entire collection. This guy is comprised of, I believe, either 8 or 9 individual Constructicons, and when combined just looks terrific, making this undeniably the best representation that we have ever seen for that Michael Bay 2009 Devastator design. And all I can really say to you guys is that without a doubt this has got to be one of, if not the best piece that I own in my entire collection room. That includes third party, that includes official mainline, and of course even includes the likes of 30/3A. This guy truly is a sight to behold and really does just tick all of those live action movie Devastator boxes that sadly the Hasbro counterpart was unable to do. But with all that being said, this figure sadly is not without its flaws, and I'll certainly be sure to touch base with all of those here in this review. But without further ado, let's bring Troublemaker in for a closer look and check out some of those astonishing details. Now, as we punch in and take a closer look here at Devastator, as you guys can see, I have been able to create that really awesome four-legged crawling pose that the character pulls off in the movie, and at least in my opinion, this is the money shot. This guy just looks insane. Now, I have detached the camera from the tripod just so that we can truly get into all of the nooks and crannies of the detail, but I'll be sure to stand him up in just a second so that we can appreciate some of the leg as well as torso detailing, which you may not be able to see here in this position. And we may as well start off with the most recent Constructicon, that being Landslip. I think this arm looks fantastic. The design of the claws are just so accurate to the movie, and you can see how I've got some of these harpoons looking as if though they've attached into the ground. You can see we've got skids and mud flap, which I actually believe to be fully in scale with this fully combined Devastator. You can see the attention to detail is just remarkable, such as this green component, which is actually completely accurate to the movie. And one thing that I personally am a massive fan of with this particular version is just how much firepower he's packing. That was something that was absent on the Hasbro release, but this guy really has got turrets, missile pods, machine guns sticking all off to the sides. You can see we've got these enormous missile pods here on the shoulders. We've got a railgun slash turret here for the actual bicep, and even as we work our way down here to skipjack, you guys may be able to see we actually do have some turrets on the legs, which I thought was such a nice attention to detail. And here for this arm, you can see we've got some machine guns attached there onto the side. Now, this is one die-cast rod which kind of holsters this tripod piece where you can actually attach these harpoons on to look as if though they are firing towards the pyramids, much like we saw in the movie. And I just wish I had the space in order to accommodate this display in my collection, as at least in my opinion, this guy looks like an absolute beast. Now, as we come closer here into the head, you may be able to see just how much paint and sculpt work is going on for the faceplate. I think that looks so nicely done. We've got the vortex grinder there for the lower jaw. I think the middle jaw's been sculpted and painted so nicely, and the sculpt work for the actual faceplate itself just is incredible. Even as we come here to the cement drum, you can see all of the mechanical detailing that we've got for this grinder section. I think that looks fantastic. Now, when you actually have him upright, this vortex grinder does attach onto the back, and I'll be sure to touch base with that in just a second. But even here for the side, you can see the gas cans, the smokestacks, as well as Mixmaster's blasters, which become an additional component here for the side of the head. Overall, it's just such an impressive looking figure, and you may be able to see way over the back there, I actually have Agent Simmons underneath the enemy scrotum, which also is such an incredible attention to detail. And even as we take a look here at the top, you can see all of these tubes which attach onto these collarbone pieces, which actually attach into the back of Devastator. Just so much thought and attention has been put into this piece, making it undeniably one of the best figures that I own in my entire collection. Now, I'll be sure to stand this guy up just so that we can take a closer look there at some of the leg detail, but definitely this is the money shot in my opinion. And so here we have Devastator in a more humanoid upright position, and this is more than likely how I'll actually be displaying him upon the shelf, despite him looking awesome in that four-legged crawling pose. Sadly, I just don't think the joints over time are going to hold up that well. Now, this guy does come with a few additional support structures, but considering there doesn't appear to be any die-cast in those ratchet joints, I just think over time, the weight of this guy may actually damage the plastic. And as you guys perhaps may have seen on my Instagram and community tab, sadly actually filming this review first time round, one of the legs did shear completely off. So personally, I look at this figure as being more of a glorified statue than something that you can actually pose and play around with. But that's not to take anything away from the overall design of this guy. I think he looks incredible. As we just take a look here at the arms in slightly more detail, this is the one that's formed out of Hightower and I believe a bucket head. I think the claws look so nicely done. I really do think the way these have come together is fantastic, and these chained harpoons really are the icing on the cake for me. You can see as we just home into the details for the torso, we've got this almost six-pack slash ribcage design, which is comprised out of both Overload and Scavenger. I think that looks awesome. Definitely an incredibly broad mid-torso. And here at the bottom, we've got the infamous enemy scrotum, which has been fully sculpted as well as painted, and undeniably, Skipjack has got to be one of my favourite components. The amount of paint and sculpt work they're able to pack into this guy's next level. We've got loads of shocks, loads of hydraulics, we've even got the turrets there on the side of the legs, and I actually think those tread toes look awesome. As we just home in here on long haul, you can see more of the same amazing sculpt as well as attention to detail. The paintwork is so nicely done on this guy, and here we of course have that arm that is made out of scrapper with that green section there at the top. And just taking a look here at the back of Devastator, honestly, just as detailed as the front. The amount of paint and sculpt work they've packed into this guy is amazing. We've got those tubes which attach onto the collarbone pieces, which actually peg here into this back section. I think the vortex grinder is by far one of my favorite parts of this back section. This was actually something that was surprisingly absent on the Studio Series version, and considering this was essentially Devastator's main weapon in the movie, that was really unfortunate to see, but Devil Savior certainly have delivered. I think the painting and the sculpting on this also looks so nicely done. Even as we take a look here at this back section, you can just see how much sculpt and paintwork has gone into this alone. And I think the back of the legs for some of these combiners are so nicely done. We've got some missile pods there for the back section of Long Haul, what appear to be some kind of hydraulic sections, which I think look fantastic. And the same can also be said here for Skipjack. You can see some really nice looking detail with some of those shocks, some of those springs, and some really nice tread detailing. Overall, just such a sight to behold from pretty much every single angle. This guy truly is a masterpiece by definition. Now, although I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of the articulation, I really wanted to home in and focus on the head in particular. Not only is this such a vast improvement over the Studio Series version in regards to articulation, but I'm a massive fan of the way you can kind of recreate that inhaling look that Devastator had, predominantly when he was on screen. So just to showcase that, we can take these sections, fold these here out to the sides. They are tabbed in very securely. We can then split the lower jaw as well as this middle jaw section, and then actually split the head in half. And here is just Devastator vacuuming up anything and everything that comes into his path. And for a very quick comparison, here we have him next to Skids. Now, surprisingly, I actually think this is pretty in scale. In the film, Mudflap actually busts through one side of Devastator's head, and I kind of think this was more or less what we saw in the movie, but definitely such a fantastic look. Personally, I prefer the head when it is completely concealed and as one component, but splaying it out really doesn't look bad by any stretch of the imagination. And just very quickly going over the articulation for this can ratchet forwards and backwards. It can also hinge up and down, which I thought was awesome, as well as rotate left to right. So just in the head itself, it's amazing. As mentioned previously, we do get very heavy duty ratchet joints in the shoulders, which I'm not a huge fan of actually manipulating. Elbow joints, we do get the hip joints as well as some ankle pivot, but once again, definitely do just take caution when handling this guy, as at least for me, I do think those ratchet joints may prove to be rather brittle over time. Now turning to size comparisons, here we have the Devil Savior Troublemaker compared alongside the Hasbro Studio Series Devastator, and despite the individual Constructicons by Devil Savior towering over their official counterparts, I was actually quite surprised to see that in terms of scale here for combined mode, there really isn't that much of a difference. The Devil Savior version is a little bigger, but definitely not as big as I was expecting. Personally, I was thinking perhaps he'd be twice the size of our Studio Series counterpart, and trust me when I say, in terms of actual heft, he is so heavy. Probably quadruple the original Hasbro version, and not to mention the detail and the paintwork is just sublime. But I do just wish perhaps he was slightly bigger to scale better with Masterpiece figures. But granted, if he was bigger, it would have made the price a lot heftier, and no doubt he would have been a lot harder to actually obtain within the collection. But there's really no comparison here for me. I think that in terms of accuracy, the Devil Savior version wins hands down. But for those of you looking for a Devastator that you can play around with, have fun, manipulate the joints all day and all long, then I would definitely recommend looking into the Studio Series version, as at least for me, I do find the Devil Saviour offering to be more of a display piece than an actual action figure that you can pick up and handle every single day. And so, some final thoughts for the Devil Saviour Troublemaker, also known as Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Devastator. Overall, it's undeniably an incredible piece, by far the best piece that I own in my entire collection. Not only is this guy incredibly ambitious, but it is by far the best representation that we have ever seen so far of that live-action movie Devastator. This is almost at the masterpiece quality, and if anything is a little better than masterpiece, I think the paintwork is up there with some of the premium collectible companies, such as 3-0. The attention to detail is literally next level. This guy truly does look like a custom piece, and even to this day I do find to be pinching myself, as I honestly would not believe this was real 5 or 10 years ago. The articulation, whilst is definitely there, I personally find is just kind of restricted due to how tight some of those ratchet joints are. It really is cringeworthy to manipulate those hips, especially after unfortunately shearing one clean off. And as far as the shoulders are concerned, whilst at the time of this recording I haven't as of yet had any breakages, much like the hips, they really do feel way too tight, and considering there's no die-cast implemented into any of these, it's definitely an area of which after this review I will probably more than likely never touch again. I think the range of motion out of the head is fantastic, leaps and bounds better when in comparison to the Hasbro offering. You can have this looking up, looking down, looking left to right. I think the articulation where the jaw is concerned is great, and how you can kind of split it open to make it look as if though Devastator is inhaling all of the debris is just fantastic. And as a display piece, this guy demands so much shelf presence. I really do think he looks incredible. So with all that being said, if you can get by this guy being more or less a glorified statue and you just want a really awesome display piece of Transformers 2 Devastator, then without a doubt this is by far the best piece at the time of this recording that you can add to the collection, that has fully transformable components of which have vehicle, robot and combined modes. But for those who perhaps want something slightly more tactile and that you can actually pick up, mess around, play around with, then I personally would definitely recommend the Studio Series offering with some of those DNA design attachments. It's really just going to come down to personal preference as to what you're looking for in regards to a display. But without a doubt, this is the best Bayverse Devastator we have ever seen, and was certainly worth the way over 2-year wait. I believe these guys were originally announced way back in 2019, so it's fantastic here in 2022 to finally see the fully assembled piece. For those of you who wish to see the transformations, definitely be sure to check out my Devil Saviour Constructicon playlist. And once again, I want to give a massive thank you to Bombusby for making all of these reviews possible. And if you are looking to add any of these components to the collection, I'll be sure to pack a link down in the description box below. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below, and as always, I thank you guys all so much for watching. Until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.